Hey there, all you lovely humans. Welcome back to another WCK podcast. My name is Kristin. If you're a first-time listener, we're so glad you found us. If you're returning, we are so happy to have you back. In this series, we interview some of our community's DMs, also known as game masters. Joining me today is someone whom I've always kind of admired. As a woman, sometimes being on the other side of the screen can come with its own set of challenges, aside from the ones you already think about as a DM. Not every woman has these struggles, but for many of us, they are real. And while not the focus of today, it's certainly something I look forward to discussing. This remarkable woman makes the word strong look weak, and I am beyond thrilled to be sitting down today with Katy, getting to learn a little more about her journey. Welcome, Katy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. um, we're gonna start real soft. I just want you to please tell me about your D&D journey, both as player and dungeon master.
Oh, well, I haven't actually been playing D&D that long in the grand scheme of things. Like quite a few of us, I believe, began when COVID hit. Um,
Mm,
I'd it was something I'd always wanted to get into, but my friends that played in real life were all located at the other side of the country, and so I'd never had a chance to play with them. And then when COVID hit, they took things online and said,
mhm.
"Do I want to join?" So I joined, and we played 2 games, and then the DM disappeared off the face of the earth. And so I was like, well, that was no good because I'm hooked now and I really
Mhm.
want to play. So I was like, well, I'll DM. And yeah, so after 2 games, I decided that I would just dive straight in there. And I bought the module Waterdeep Dragon Heist
Mhm.
and said to a few of my friends, I was like, it's gonna be my first time, but do you wanna
Mm.
play with me? And so we did.
I am so surprised to hear that you have only been playing that long. I thought that you had been playing longer. You seem like you play longer. You have played longer than that for sure. Um, and you mentioned that module, and it makes me remember that I started that module and I never finished it. We're stuck in the little manor for
Oh
2 years
no.
now. We never finished it. It's all right. Um, but how did that go?
So actually started it with 2 groups. One was the group that I was originally playing the first game with, where the DM decided that they just didn't want to carry on anymore.
Mhm.
And we got about halfway into it, but I had a little bit of a problem player, and
Mm,
scheduling was a slight issue. But the other group that I was playing with, we got all the way through it and actually started Dungeon of the Mad Mage as well, following on from it.
nice.
But we actually didn't finish that one because we didn't like the style of it. It's very different, it's
Yeah.
much more of a dungeon crawler rather than RP focused.
Mhm. And that was
But
with the same group of players?
yeah, it was.
Nice. Um, so dealing with that problem player, um, let's talk about I mentioned it just very in the beginning, there's a different kind of set of problems that sometimes can arise from being a woman on the other side of the screen. Really kind of being a woman in charge in general, but that's a whole different topic for a different day for another podcast. But um, do you feel like your experience, especially on the other side of the screen as a woman, has been different?
I think I've been pretty lucky for the most part in that the people that I have chosen to play with have always been very respectful
Mhm.
and never treated me any differently because I'm a woman. But when I have searched for games, it has certainly been apparent that some people would
Mm,
treat you differently. I've had
yeah.
offers for one-on-one games which sounded a little bit creepy and yeah, you can generally get quite a good idea from the messages you get from people that
Mhm.
you don't want to play with them, but thankfully, we are
Mm.
surrounded by a wonderful community of people who, yeah, have
Oh, yeah.
never caused
Yep.
any problems of that kind.
Yeah, definitely not here.
No.
I've only really kind of encountered it a handful of times, and it made me really happy to know that, in general, I find, and I don't know about you, in general, I find that I am basically the only woman playing in most of my games. So it's mostly male
Yeah.
counterparts behind the screen, co-players. Um, and there would be times where I would have people just like wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise, which honestly is quite impressive because I talk and I talk and I talk and I if I want to be heard, I generally kind of push my way in there. But it was really nice to have a couple of the people who were in my party, uh, look at those problematic players and say, it's her turn to speak now too." So I don't wanna make it out to sound like it's terrible all the way around because there are some fantastic other humans out there that will recognize those things that we struggle with. So yeah,
Yeah.
but your husband plays as well, right?
Yes, only very recently because I've obsessed over it and he wanted to get
I
involved
was
with
gonna
my
say,
obsession.
is that you're doing so you introduced him to it.
Yes, I
Mhm.
did.
And does he like it?
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
He likes to be able to play very chaotic characters, very very chaotic characters. But no, we actually started an in-person game with a couple of friends locally, and yeah, I think that he likes it, just not to the same level that I like it.
Yeah. He likes it the way a normal person might like it. He's
Mm,
not just
yeah,
on our obsessive level. Gotcha.
pretty much, yeah.
Um, so then that's you. I was gonna ask, I believe I'm fairly confident that you DM for him in is he in your Tuesday game?
No, no, he's not
He was in
actually
your
in my
Strahd game though.
Strahd game, yes.
Yes. So this in-person game that you're playing, are you both just players?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah?
it's currently on hold because, the DM's wife is, heavily pregnant.
Uh-huh.
But, yes, we were both players in that one, and, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was,
Nice.
crazy, very chaotic.
Um, so that actually leads me right into my next topic that I wanted to discuss in general is that you, not very long ago, welcomed a quite gorgeous baby into this world, and you were able to play and run games all the way through a very challenging pregnancy. Um, how was that? I mean, as somebody who's had quite a few babies, it's exhausting. Even when you have a good pregnancy, it's exhausting. And honestly, sometimes you don't want to deal with other people.
Yeah, yeah,
so,
that's
so tell me
true.
about that.
I mean, yeah, at times it was definitely difficult, especially towards the end of my pregnancy when I was tired and massive and needing to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. But
Hmm.
I still managed to play pretty much every week. We haven't, as a group, my Tuesday campaign, we haven't missed that many sessions really
No.
in the grand scheme of things. So it was one of my things that I was like, I want to keep doing it. Like I don't want to give it up, even though it's going to be hard, especially when baby arrives. Yeah, I didn't want to make that fall off my list of
Mm,
priorities because it's something that I really really enjoy doing.
yeah.
But I mean the people that I play with have been very understanding. They're always very patient with me, and they respect that, sometimes you need to finish a session a bit early, or
Mhm.
you need to make a mad dash to the bathroom or whatever. Yeah, they've been absolutely great with it.
Yeah, I was amazed you didn't take much time off. Now, during your pregnancy, it was rough just in general, you were super sick, and then towards the end of it, you got some of the scariest news that anybody could ever imagine. I mean, it's scary in general, and then I cannot even imagine, like, I sat there and I wandered around my house and I talked to my husband about it because mom to mom, like, it's just a whole other level of terrifying. You were lucky enough to find a lump and you were diagnosed with breast cancer. So uh, you didn't even really take much time off after you found out that that happened. And between kind of I mean, as a mom, sometimes we can lose ourselves into being a mom, you know? But not only that, but then having this other big looming thing. Are you using D&D as like a, "This is my normal. This is what keeps me sane. This is my routine. This helps me cope with everything else that's kind of going so chaotically in my life right now."
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great form of escapism. It's nice to
Mhm.
just hang out with friends and just forget all the craziness that is having a baby and going through chemotherapy,
Yeah.
and just dive into this whole other world that we've created together and just forget about it all for a few hours. It's definitely something that has been like an absolute rock for me to to lean upon
Yep.
through yeah, what is some very hard times.
I think it's been absolutely incredible, and I can imagine that I would want to hold on to a couple of things like that. Even like I said before, just as a mom, I try to make it a priority for me to get my games in because that's who I am, and I want them to see me prioritizing myself too. And then the added benefit, like you said, of that escapism has to be just really kind of good for the soul a little bit. Now,
Yeah.
you are in your campaign, you are another homebrew pro. Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about the world that you've created?
Yeah, so I came up with the idea for this world because I'd done a couple of modules and I was finding the rigidity of them a bit constraining for both myself and the players. I
Mhm.
like to be able to divulge more in the different lore and information that they can come across, and so yeah, I had this idea for this crazy world where I can't give too much away because some of the players might be listening. But
Mhm.
they this world was seeded by the gods by these things called obelisks, and the obelisks connected the gods to the world above and the
Mhm.
people that then lived on this planet. And when that happened, a signal of sorts was sent out into the universe saying, "There's some new gods here, and they are ripe and ready for picking." And so
Mhm.
the big bad, the devourer of gods, came to the world and pretty much destroyed it, but it was stopped and contained within this place called the pit. And the players have found themselves in the aftermath of this situation where the world has pretty much recovered.
Mhm.
Um, they're making the use of crystals that have appeared and the magic surge that happened when the big bad came the first time round. And as they've gone along through the campaign and on the adventures they've been on, they've realised that the big bad is not dead and the big bad is coming back, and they
Oh.
might be the ones that can possibly stop it. But they have pretty much traveled around the entire world now, so it's been really fun um, getting them to dive into the different culture and lore that they've been able to find in all the different countries that
Mhm.
I've scattered around the place for them.
What's the name of your world?
Helif.
Nice. And so hell, what has been your favorite moment or moments in this world for you so far?
There's definitely been a few. I think one of my favorites was definitely they weren't actually doing anything particularly story related. They'd had a long journey and they'd ended up in this place called South Rhodesia, in the
Mhm.
capital city of this place, which is ruled by dragons. And it's got quite a kind of oriental style to it.
Mhm.
And they had gone to this little restaurant and they were all just sat down, and I swear I didn't say anything for about 45 minutes because the players were just sat there RPing with each other, getting to know each other. They'd been traveling for a while and they were just diving into each other's characters in character and just having a conversation like you and I would.
Mhm.
And I think that was just one of my favorite moments. I just sat there, like, with a massive smile on my face, just listening
Yeah.
to them going into it. And, probably my other one is, again, in this same place, they'd been tasked to go and save the dragon eggs, um, from these hunters that were trying to steal them. And they succeeded. They saved the dragon eggs, but while they were doing so, they left the two dragons that had tasked them with this fighting outside, and one of them died. And they came outside and witnessed this dragon being taken out by this huge airship and falling down the mountain. And
Oh.
our cleric, who is played by Ellie, was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I can cast Revivify on her," but they knew that they couldn't get down the mountain in time for that spell to work, and there was
Right.
nothing that they could do to save her. And there was just this moment of silence where they suddenly realized that while they won their little battle, there were these other consequences which were going to happen in the world that they could do nothing about.
Right.
And it was a difficult journey back to the city for them that this had happened, and then they also came across this village where everyone had been slaughtered by this prophet of the
Mhm.
big bad, where um, they again had ignored the smoke on the way there, and this was the consequence of them
Yep.
doing that.
Yep.
And there was a lot of emotion in that session. It was great.
Yeah. I just have to compliment you. I've talked about it before in other interviews. Not everybody does it, but I love when whoever's running the game remembers, well, this is your journey, but there's all this other stuff happening over here too. And
Yeah.
just, you saw this little kid on the street saying, "Please, I need help. My mom fell down a well." And you're like, "I don't have time for that right now, kill." Well, I mean, there's a consequence to your action or inaction, and that's going to play out as well as whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Another one of the things that I love that you do is you run one shots, but they are set in your world and they affect the player's world in their campaign. So between that and maybe anything else that has happened in the campaign, tell me what are the most memorable ways your world has changed for your players? Maybe not even as a direct action of theirs.
One of the biggest things that they've done was relatively recently, in that they were going to go and rescue a couple of their crewmates reluctantly for some reason on Lee's behalf. He really didn't like them, but they were going to go and rescue them. And in doing so, they had to cut off the power to this facility. But that involved cutting the power off to the entire country because they
Mhm,
realized that the entire country was being powered by a crystal which contained the soul of a god. And they had a few choices on how they could go about this, but they decided to teleport the crystal into the astral sea
mhm,
and let it explode there, because the soul of the god they thought was too corrupted to do anything about it, and so they got rid of it, and in doing so they cut off the entire power supply to all of the country of Pradding, which is mostly populated by gnomes and humans. And they were like, "Yeah, this is fine. It's not a big deal or anything."
who needs
Um,
power?
they rescued their crewmates and carried on their journey. they had a quick stop off to a very northern village in the place, and helped them out a bit when they realized that they had no power and winter was coming. They hadn't got enough supplies to keep them alive throughout the winter.
Mhm.
And, that's just the beginning of the consequences of those actions. And yeah, I mean, an entire country suddenly being without power when they're reliant upon it, it's
Mhm.
quite a big deal. So that's yeah, one big way in which they've changed the world.
But well, I'll see how that plays out. You'll have to let me know. That doesn't sound like it's a good situation brewing for all of those people without power at the current
No,
moment.
it's not.
Um, I have been lucky enough to play a couple of times with you, both as a fellow player and under your rule as DM. And you've always impressed me with your creativity and knowledge of the game mechanics, which is why I think it caught me so off guard earlier that you've only been playing about as long as I have. But is it something that maybe comes naturally to you, or something you've had to work on over time? In school, were you somebody who liked to do creative writing?
Yeah, so I actually did creative writing at university. It was my degree was English and creative writing,
Aha,
and
okay.
I have actually written several books. So yeah, the actual writing side of things is something that I've been doing for a very long time. What's different about D&D is that I actually improv a lot
Mhm,
of it.
mhm.
I realized quite early on, especially doing the homebrew, and that there's absolutely no point in writing down what I believe to be every single possible scenario that the players could come up with, because they will come up with something else that I haven't thought of.
Of course.
And yeah, they'll go off track. They'll do things that you don't expect them to do. They'll speak to people that you don't expect them to speak to.
Mhm.
And I was like, I can't plan for all of this. I would spend literally all of my time planning, and I haven't got time for that, unfortunately.
No.
So we'll put the most basic of briefs together now of what is going to happen in a session. Sometimes I don't put anything together at all, and I just see what they do and wing it. Yeah, but
Um,
yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference is that I actually end up improving a lot of it now.
yeah, yeah. Um, that's incredible. I had no idea that you are a published author. Can you tell me a bit about your book? And are they dragon books? What are your books about?
So I have one which is a collection of short stories called
Mhm,
Death, Demons, and Dystopia.
mhm.
And that's mostly based on writing prompts taken from the Reddit writing prompts,
Okay.
and things that I've written for that. And so there's a whole variety of different fantasy, horror, sci-fi, and dystopian fiction bunged into
Mhm.
there. And then my novel is it's kind of like a urban fantasy slash sci-fi. It's a bit of a hybrid genre,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's been out for a few years now.
Nice. Are they available online if anybody wants to pick them up?
Yeah, they're on Amazon on Kindle, and there's actually an audiobook of the novel as well.
Fantastic. We will put links to those in the description of this podcast for you. That's
Oh,
incredible.
great, thank you.
I I am an avid reader. I'm an avid reader. I love reading, except for, my brain has to be in the right space right now. I have to not be interrupted every 2 seconds. Mom, where's this?
Yeah.
Mom, where's that? Mom, I need a drink. Could you just walk past your father to ask me to get you a drink? But yeah, that sounds really exciting. And I'm glad I asked because I think that's a piece of the puzzle that makes absolute sense. Um, with what I see from you, it doesn't surprise me at all that you are a creative writer and you have some published stuff. So everybody go and check that out. Um, so with your background, with not being really tenured in this gaming system, what advice would you give to someone just starting out?
Oh, just starting out as a DM.
Yeah.
Um, well, hmm, I think don't. don't tie yourself down to the written rules or the written law that you've got there, because I think sometimes that can end up with you being too restrictive with your own creativity. And as I said before, the players are gonna find a way to go completely off track from what you have planned. So it doesn't really matter if you want to plan out everything, then by all means do so, but just be aware and be relaxed with yourself that you can go off target with it a bit, because sometimes those are the most fun sessions when you have absolutely no clue what's going on, and
Yeah.
you have to kind of go back on yourself and read your notes and be like, oh god, when did they go here, oh who is this person? But you
Mhm.
can come up with some of the most fun characters and plot lines that way. Like in my Tuesday campaign, we have a character which was made completely from an off the cuff comment, and that Lee's character's mum, one of the things that you're not meant to mention around her or her husband is don't talk about the postman. And it was implied that she had had an affair with the postman.
Mhm.
And now the postman has become this arch-fae character that
Oh
you
my
can
goodness.
summon by saying his name into a mirror 3 times. And the postman will deliver a message to anyone, anywhere, in any of the planes for a price, but the
Uh-huh.
price is never gold. It's something like one of the characters, Vic, he has given a portion of his luck in order to send a message, and now that hasn't come back to bite him yet, but it will.
Yet.
Yeah,
Yet.
exactly.
Deals
So
with
yeah, and that
Faye.
was completely unplanned. I didn't have that planned at all, but yeah, they made this comment about the postman, and I made the postman.
That's brilliant. And just because you mentioned it earlier that you find yourself improving more versus, somebody who writes things and plans them, what kind of advice would you give to somebody for improvisation? I know that that's a big hang up for a lot of people. And generally, once they get into it and going, they're fine. But there's still all this mental kind of static in terms of approaching it. So what kind of words of advice do you have towards
Yeah,
improv?
I think when you're starting out, it's good to have like even just some little notes. Obviously, that's a bit counterintuitive to complete improv, but if you
Mhm.
have just a few little notes about the characters or the place and situation that you're wanting to improv, it can help just trigger your mind into coming up with those the things that you're going to say. So whether you've got, you say that you've got a barmaid who is secretly a level 20 warlock or something. That you just put that down as your note, and you say that she is very sassy in the way that she speaks. Then
Mhm.
suddenly you've got something that's just going to prompt you on how you're going to talk for that woman, or how you're going to play um, the kind of things that she's going to come up with when she's talking to the characters.
Sure. Fantastic advice. Well, I will let you go. Katie, I know as a new mom, time is a precious commodity. Your son has been remarkably quiet during this entire interview. I am
Yeah,
so
he's been very
impressed. What a
good.
good baby. But between your new baby and your medical treatments, the exhaustion must be real. So thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. I'm absolutely privileged to have been able to sit down and chat with you. On behalf of the WCK community, thank you for giving us a little insight into your world as game master. And thank you to everyone for listening. We are so glad you're here. One more thing, remember, be cool. But if you can't be cool, be wicked. Thanks so much, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you to Kev G. Moore for providing the music for this series. Check out his links for YouTube, Spotify and Patreon in the links below. Wherever you found us today, don't forget to like and subscribe for more great content, and if you want to find out more about what we do, how to support us, pick up some merch and find links to our friends like JB Media, visit us at wickedcoolkids.co.uk.